Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Thursday, August 25th. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi, and we begin with breaking news. A former San Diego State football star was among those accused in a civil lawsuit of raping a teenage girl at an off-campus house party last fall. The suit was filed today in San Diego Superior Court by local attorney Dan Gillian. KPBS obtained a copy of the suit from news partner ABC 10 News. The suit accuses Matt Ariza of having sex with the then 17-year-old girl in the backyard of the home off campus and then bringing her inside of a room where, the suit says, other men gang raped her. Ariza was drafted by the Buffalo Bills in April. When the now 18-year-old woman talked to KPBS last month, she said that she was in and out of consciousness.
It was really aggressive. It was aggressive. It was really scary.
Two other SDSU players were also named in the suit: Xavier Leonard and Nolan Pa'a Iwaliko. Leonard is listed on this year's roster as a redshirt freshman. Iwaliko is not on this year's roster. An attorney for Leonard said the district attorney has not filed any charges and a civil lawsuit has no bearing on guilt. An attorney for Iwaliko said, quote, "This is an ongoing investigation and that no conclusion should be drawn regarding my client at this time." Ariza's attorneys did not immediately return calls seeking comment. You will not be able to buy a gasoline-powered car in California by the middle of the next decade. The California Air Resources Board has voted to ban the sales of vehicles with internal combustion engines by the year 2035. Here's more from KPBS reporter John Carroll.
The process of getting to today's vote began 2 years ago when Governor Gavin Newsom signed an executive order mandating that all vehicles sold in California must be zero emission by 2035. Now the process of phasing out gas engines begins. There are benchmarks along the way. 35% of new vehicles must be zero emission in just 4 years, 68% by 2030, and then 100% in 13 years.
I would say that there's a lot of room for improvement.
At the San Diego-based Climate Action Campaign, transportation policy advocate Corina Contreras says the move to phase out gas-powered vehicles is great, but she says there needs to be follow-through.
Quick building of infrastructure that's going to help people actually have freedom of choice, where they don't feel like they need to utilize their own vehicle.
Contreras says efforts to go green should include further development of mass transit as well. State regulators say the new rules have received very little pushback from car manufacturers. Here at the Team Kia dealership in El Cajon, General Manager Chris George says he's all for zero-emission vehicles.
Overall, I think it's important that we're responsible for the environment.
But he has several concerns.
One would be accessibility. Average price point for an EV vehicle is $62,000, out of the reach for most people. The infrastructure cannot support all these vehicles going on the road.
The state has committed money to build more EV charging stations, but George says he's skeptical that will happen fast enough. Subsidies are available to help people buy new and used EVs, but George says car companies and dealers are facing enormous costs to retool their service facilities and to train their mechanics on how to work on EVs. People will still be able to buy used gas-powered cars after 2035, but the die is now cast. Even with the inevitable challenges, the state with the largest car market in the U.S. is now moving toward a greener future. John Carroll, KPBS News.
Mexico is one of the most dangerous places in the world for journalists. Mexican authorities announced the arrest of the man accused of ordering the murder of Tijuana photojournalist Margarito Martinez. KPBS border reporter Gustavo Solis has more details on the arrest.
Hired gunmen shot and killed Margarito Martinez outside his home as he left for work in the morning of January 17th. He's just one of 15 journalists who have been killed in Mexico so far this year. Sonia de Anda is with the Tijuana-based journalism collective Yo Sí Soy Periodista. She says it's been an incredibly difficult year.
Entonces ha sido un tema difícil para todos nosotros.
3 men suspected of actually carrying out the shooting were arrested this year. Prosecutors are scheduled to present their case against those men in a few weeks. Mexican authorities say that David Lopez Jimenez, who works for the Arellano Felix cartel, ordered the hit. News of his arrest got mixed reactions in Tijuana. De Anda says that the arrest is promising news, but she doesn't fully trust the Mexican justice system, partly because 90% of all violent crimes there go unpunished.
Pues no le tenemos mucha confianza a la autoridad.
Martinez was a prolific photojournalist who worked with reporters from all over the world. Within a week of his murder, Lourdes Maldonado, another veteran Tijuana journalist, was also shot and killed outside her home. In February, authorities arrested multiple suspects in Maldonado's murder, but since then, there have been very few updates from prosecutors on the case. Gustavo Solis, KPBS News.
California's red flag laws can take guns out of the hands of people who threaten violence. KPBS reporter Jacob Ayers says the state attorney general is shining a spotlight on San Diego as an example for other cities to follow.
California Attorney General Rob Bonta spoke outside of the downtown San Diego courthouse to promote strategies to help prevent gun violence across the state. He said San Diego is leading the way, and other parts of California need to follow suit.
32% of all gun restraining orders were issued right here, despite San Diego County being just around 8% of California's total population.
Attorney General Bonta highlighted the work of the city of San Diego to educate community and law enforcement partners about the use of gun violence restraining orders and domestic violence restraining orders. San Diego City Attorney Mara Elliott invited other jurisdictions to reach out to her office for help to set up a similar program.
Over the past 5 years, we have obtained gun violence restraining orders against more than 900 individuals with firearms or access to firearms. In each case, a court has reviewed the evidence and determined that a dangerous situation existed. More than 50 of those gun violence restraining orders were in response to threats of mass casualty events.
Bonta urged California Sheriff's Departments to take advantage of grant funding through the Gun Violence Reduction Program.
My office is providing a total of $10 million, including $5 million we have yet to allocate in grants to support county-level law enforcement efforts to seize weapons and ammunition from individuals barred from possession and in the armed prohibited person system.
The second round of funding for sheriff's departments is now available with the submission due date of September 2nd. Bonta says anyone who believes a person to be a danger to themselves or others should contact local law enforcement. Jacob Ayers, KPBS News.
Gun safety activists are celebrating a new Biden administration rule now in effect. The Justice Department has changed the federal definition of a firearm to include so-called ghost guns. Those are the hard-to-trace, unregulated weapons often sold in parts kits. They're often made using parts from 3D printers. Under the new definition, ghost guns are treated the same as traditional firearms, and that includes mandating serial numbers and background checks on certain parts in each kit. From 2016 to 2021, more than 45,000 suspected ghost guns were recovered by law enforcement. The outrage continues in Uvalde, Texas. That's even after the school board unanimously voted last night to fire the district police chief. 20 law enforcement agencies were on scene during the shooting that killed 19 children and 2 adults. Amy Kiley reports on calls to hold them accountable.
I have messages for Pete Arredondo and all the law enforcement that were there that day. Turn in your badge and step down.
She's getting part of what she wants. The Uvalde School Board fired District Police Chief Pete Arredondo last night. Some parents were angry the discussion before the vote was behind closed doors.
Our babies are dead, our teachers are dead, our parents are dead. The least y'all can do is show us the respect to do this
Others have expressed frustration. It took 3 months to fire the chief.
If it was one of your children, heads would be rolling right now.
But attendees applauded the final outcome. A statement from Arredondo's attorney says he didn't feel safe attending the hearing. It alleges he was terminated without cause and mentions potential recovery of monetary damages.
He is absolutely responsible, but so is every other cop that was in that hallway.
Others are demanding accountability from other law enforcement agencies on scene during the shooting. High on that list is the Texas Department of Public Safety and its director, Stephen McCraw.
Here we have a governor who the Department of Public Safety direct reports to, who's failed to ask accountability from one of his own agency heads.
I'm Amy Kiley reporting.
A new investment in getting unsheltered people into housing. The city of San Diego is getting nearly $12 million from the state's Project Home Key program, and that money will help fund a housing facility that's already under construction called Path Villas El Cerrito. The building will be 5 stories high with new homes made up of 5 studio apartments, 17 one-bedroom and 18 two-bedroom apartments. It's similar to existing facilities like one downtown where Destry Whitney now lives after being homeless for several years. He says the local and state programs that helped him were life-changing.
Having a safe place to be, it's not necessarily safe out on the street most of the time. So it really brings you back up to human status. You stop feeling, it does help a lot of people, a lot of people.
The new building will have a health and physical rehab facility on the ground floor where tenants can get medical care, substance abuse treatment, and mental health care. Guaranteed housing for incoming students is back at UC San Diego. The university made the announcement today. During the pandemic, the amount of housing was reduced in order to bring down density to limit the virus's spread. With the opening of the Theater District Living and Learning neighborhood next fall, the university will be able to offer a 2-year housing guarantee to undergrads. Students coming in this fall will also qualify for the guarantee. The university has more than 18,000 total beds on campus and is ranked 3rd in the country for student housing inventory. Millions of dollars in fruit is at risk in northern San Diego County after discovering the invasive Mexican fruit fly. KPBS health reporter Matt Hoffman says farmers are hoping to get rid of the pests and avoid them before it's time to harvest.
They are normally a pretty durable fruit, but there are pests that can attack it, and that's what we're having to deal with right now.
Third-generation grower Warren Lyle has been in this position before. He owns Lyle Enterprises in Palma Valley, which has 250 acres of oranges and avocados. Back in 2002, there was an even larger infestation of Mexican fruit flies threatening his crop.
And that the quarantine lasted almost a year. And it was hard.
Lyle dodged the fruit flies 2 decades ago. Though he was in the quarantined area, his fruit was never infested. Today's outbreak is threatening a total of $300 million in local crops. Lyle says the invasive Mexican fruit flies lay their eggs inside dozens of citrus and tropical fruits. Larva then causes it to spoil.
And it rots and it's destroyed. And so it is a pest that we can't tolerate.
This latest infestation started in Valley Center. Officials say it's a small population and they've created a 77-mile quarantine area to try and eradicate them. That means any farmers inside the quarantine boundary have to treat their fruits with an organic pesticide. They also have to inspect them before they can be sold.
These pests hitchhike into our region.
Ha Deng is San Diego County's agricultural commissioner. She says state and federal ag officials are in town overseeing the quarantine and making sure fruits are being treated and cleaned. Deng has been holding town halls and talking with concerned growers.
That is going to impact the operation, it's going to increase the production costs, and as you know, that would be also high, resulting in potential cost increases for the consumers.
Deng says state officials are releasing sterile fruit flies to try and disrupt the reproductive process. They are also removing fruit and doing some spot treatments. The quarantine will run through at least June of next year, and it could go longer if the flies cannot be eradicated. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Thunderstorms possible in parts of our county today, while in the southeast counties, they are experienced some of the worst flooding in history. Reporter Mike Valerio looks at the battle between too much rain and drought.
As record-setting rain fell across much of the South, the rescues were daunting amid the dangerous deluge. Just outside of Jackson, Mississippi Wednesday, first responders evacuating dozens of seniors.
We got everybody out, and that's the most important thing. We can replace the stuff, but the people are out.
In nearby Florence, children piled onto a tactical truck with more than 100 kids and 15 adults rescued from a daycare.
Our cars are damaged, houses are damaged, and everything.
As heavy rains pounded the region, the ground buckled under sections of highway, sending this truck into the floodwater below. Saturated soil moved train tracks, with 2 pressurized train cars rolling into a 20-foot ditch.
And I've been here 13 years, and this is by far the worst it's ever flooded.
Despite the devastation, record rainfall is helping to improve drought conditions across parts of the South. New data from the U.S. Drought Monitor show areas of Texas in exceptional drought decreased by more than half this week. It's a different story in the Northeast, where scientists say the drought persisted or expanded, especially across Vermont, Connecticut, and New Jersey. Mike Valerio, KPBS News.
Dry weather's in our future. Humidity levels will drop off a little bit as the monsoonal moisture decreases. So as we check out our weather headlines, drier air returns Friday and through the weekend. And it does look like it should be a beautiful weekend here. And looking ahead to next week, temperatures will start to rise some after Monday. And as we take you into the evening hours, we still have some concerns in the mountains out into the deserts here. Could be some thunderstorms around causing some problems, so we still have those flood watches. Overnight tonight here in San Diego, still humid, the clouds rolling in. Temperature drops down to around 70 degrees. 68 in Oceanside, Escondido 66, Ramona 64, and El Cajon 71. Borrego Springs, a warm 79 tonight, and we'll be in the mid-60s in Campo. Look at our Friday weather. Well, we're starting to see some drier conditions, and of course, it'll be a warm day with sunshine. We'll climb to about 80 in Oceanside, El Cajon 92, Ramona 91, so the interior is still pretty warm. And into the mountains, it should be a drier day. Can't rule out the stray thunderstorm erupting here. Here's our futurecast for Friday. Morning clouds, they'll be giving way to some sunshine. And then as we take you through the afternoon, look the mountains out into the desert. It could be a stray storm, but it definitely looks a lot drier. And then as we take into the weekend, it should be dry and you'll see typical August heat. So here's our extended forecast for the coast. Temperatures just slightly cooler with clouds in the morning giving way to sunshine. Some of the inland valleys will see some morning clouds. That will give way to sunshine. Looks like some nice weather through the weekend. As we take you through the mountains, it is beautiful here and it will be dry. And into the deserts, sunshine and turning warmer next week. And for KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Mark Mancuso.
Mortgage rates are rising again. According to Freddie Mac, the average rate for a 30-year fixed mortgage rose to nearly 5.6% this week. And that's close to twice the rate from the year before, although it is down from June. Real estate agents say the high mortgage rates are stopping some potential home buyers from making purchases. In July, sales of existing homes in the U.S. dropped for the 6th time in as many months. This is also causing some problems for mortgage companies, which are laying off some employees or closing down business. The Biden administration announced it will cancel some student debt for millions of Americans, while college graduates may get some financial help. Students who recently graduated from high school say they're opting to skip college in favor of a career in the trades. Gloria Pazmino breaks it all down in this report.
Faced with the rising cost of higher education, a hot jobs market, and a volatile economy, these high school graduates are entering the job market right now.
Student debts are crazy right now. They're through the roof when it comes to having to pay back the interest and everything.
So they say they're skipping college, at least for now.
If I go into the trades, I can make money while I learn and then eventually maybe go to college after after I make enough money.
Experts say it's part of a pattern showing undergraduate college enrollment down last spring since the start of the pandemic.
We really thought things would be starting to pick up a little at this point, or at least the rate of decline would be slowing now after 2 full years of the pandemic.
A recent study by the National Student Clearinghouse found 662,000 fewer students enrolled in undergraduate programs in spring of 2022. As of late May, the undergraduate student body had dropped by nearly 1.4 million students from the start of the pandemic.
The economy really changed. Starting last summer, wages were rising. Employers were eager to hire people, even with minimal skills or training. Tuition is still very high, and students have a lot of concerns and fears about taking on student debt.
The Biden administration announced this week it will cancel some student debt for millions of Americans.
My dad is 45 and he is still paying for student debt, and it's not a life I want to live.
Here at the National Leadership and Skills Conference in Atlanta, thousands of students compete to showcase their trade skills.
Maybe you decide, hey, automotive's not for me, I want to see culinary. Or maybe you decide, neither of those options are for me, I want to check out jet engines.
Increased interest in trades is good news here in Virginia at ACTE headquarters. The group represents thousands of career and technical education professionals.
Our career and technical education programs in many cases pay very well, very competitive with those that may have a 4-year degree.
Back on the competition floor, students prepare for the world beyond high school, college degree or not. I'm Gloria Pasmino reporting.
I'm Amna Nawaz. Tonight on the NewsHour, a judge orders the release of a redacted affidavit that details the reasons for the FBI search at Trump's Florida home. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Today is National Parks Founders Day, celebrating 106 years of preservation and conservation efforts. President Woodrow Wilson authorized the service on August 25, 1916. It started with 35 parks and monuments and now oversees 400 sites across all 50 states, U.S. territories, and Washington, D.C. And that adds up to 84 million acres. This weekend, you can choose from the fantastical worlds of aliens and genies or the reality of a Marine facing an indifferent Veterans Administration as a trio of new movies open in cinemas. KPBS Cinema Junkie Beth Accomando has these recommendations.
It feels like a millennium of giddy anticipation waiting for George Miller's new film starring Tilda Swinton and Idris Elba. But 3,000 Years of Longing is finally here.
My name is Alethea. My story is true.
Truth and fantasy are enticingly intertwined when a woman releases a djinn or genie from a bottle and faces a classic question.
So, what will you wish for? What is your heart's desire?
But Alethea knows all too well the dangers of such an offer.
There's no story about wishing that is not a cautionary tale.
Miller's film is a cautionary tale, but also one of wild imagination, intoxicating visuals that pop off the screen, and unexpectedly rich emotional layers. It's a fairy tale for adults that subverts expectations by giving us a magical djinn that's more vulnerable to messy human emotions than the woman he's trying to manipulate into making wishes.
Is there any life in you? Are you even alive?
3,000 Years of Longing is a glorious valentine to the power stories have to teach us about empathy and the human condition. See it on the big screen where it can truly soar. Then, a South Korean sci-fi tale catapults from outer space to give us a world where aliens have been using Earth as a jail, with the criminals imprisoned inside human bodies. Then guards travel back and forth in time to make sure they don't escape. Alienoid also has sorcerers, droids, time-traveling SUVs, lots of tentacles, a divine blade everyone's after, and a young girl on a mission. The story's too crazy to fit into one movie, so this is only part one of a time-jumping saga that audaciously mixes period martial arts action with modern sci-fi and still makes room for broad comedy. It may be confusing and convoluted at times, but it's also wildly engaging and ridiculous fun. Plus, the effects and production design are imaginative. I hope that part 2 arrives soon. But if you're looking for something more grounded, then John Boyega gives an intense and heartbreaking performance as an ex-Marine fed up with the VA's failure to provide the support they promised.
What do I need to do to get the attention that I need right now?
Breaking is based on the true story of Brian Brown Easley. It's a kindred spirit to the Denzel Washington film John Q. Both films give us good men driven to make desperate choices in order to call attention to infuriating inequities. Although the overt focus of the film is about how the VA mistreated Easley, it also reveals how law enforcement places greater emphasis on resolving situations with firepower and violence than negotiation.
They gonna come in that door and crack my head open.
Ain't nobody coming in there and cracking open your skull, man. No, sir, not on my word.
Nigga, please, you don't control these people, man. You ain't got no power.
Boyega is making some smart film choices, and it's great to see him grow as an actor. The film also marks the last performance of the always outstanding Michael K. Williams. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
And here's another look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. Counties would be responsible for carrying out the state's controversial Care Court Plan. On Morning Edition, how a shortage of mental health care workers could put plans in jeopardy. And then on Midday Edition, a roundup of all the best arts and culture events around town in the weekend preview. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.